Welcome back. It's panel time. Chris Matthews, host of Hardball and MSNBC, author of Bobby Kennedy, A Raging Spirit, coming to paperback very quickly. Helene Cooper, Pentagon correspondent for the New York Times. Eliana Johnson, national political reporter for Politico. And Jonah Goldberg, he's an LA Times columnist, senior editor at National Review. And Suicide of the West is your book, right?
That's right.
All right. Let me begin. Yeah, there it is, because we're doing it right now, everybody. I think Caitlin Flanagan at The Atlantic, David French at National Review sort of, I think, set up the conversation pretty well for us. Let me read you from Caitlin Flanagan in The Atlantic. The least we should do is put this confirmation on hold until we can learn more about what happened. If it's not true, Kavanaugh should be confirmed without a cloud of suspicion. If it is true, we'll have to decide whether you get to attack a girl, show no remorse, and eventually become a Supreme Court justice. My own inclination is no. Here's David French. If there isn't any corroboration or external evidence outside of Christine Ford's 3 decades old recollections, that's simply not sufficient basis for derailing the nomination of an outstanding jurist, no matter how fiercely they're believed. What's going to be the standard of believability, Eliana? Where are we?
I think it's tremendously difficult. You have partisans on the left, including a Democratic senator, saying that we must believe the testimony of a woman, and it is anti-woman to challenge the accusations, and partisans on the right throwing out the names of other potential assailants without much proof. But what I think the difficult position Judge Kavanaugh, excuse me, Freudian slip, but is being put in is that in the current climate, it is tremendously difficult for him to defend himself without being accused of being anti-woman, and he, I think, does need to be able to offer a defense.
How are we going to resolve whether who's believed here, Jonah?
I'm not sure that we are. I do think that the preponderance of the evidence that we have, which is almost entirely circumstantial, witness testimony and the like, is in Judge Kavanaugh's favor. The 4 people who were, as you brought up, the 4 people who are alleged to be there all say they not only did not know about the attack, which is understandable since it was allegedly done in secret, they don't know about the party. Right. One person who's a friend of Ford's doesn't even say that she knows Kavanaugh.
And she did say she believes Ford.
Yeah,
that's right, for
fine.
what it's worth. But yes, you're right, she did.
But one thing that's very difficult for people on the right and left to get their heads around is that even if what Dr. Ford is saying is true, at least as far as she sees it, the long-term precedent that we may be setting that says you can issue a not under oath allegation with no other corroboration for it, and destroy a man's or a candidate's, a nominee's character and reputation to destroy a nomination, that is a problem for both parties and for this country. And everyone on the left is saying the blocking of Merrick Garland justifies anything that the Democrats do. Well, if they do this to Brett Kavanaugh, you're going to have Republicans for a generation saying the destruction of Brett Kavanaugh justifies whatever they do, and everything will get worse.
Chris?
Well, let's start with the basics. Dr. Ford has a right to petition Congress. It's in the Constitution. You have a right. She had a right to bring her complaint, to bring her information. Number 2, didn't she also have a responsibility? If she has this recollection, if she told her husband about it when they were getting married, it was a marital problem for them. She went to couples therapy about that. There was that earlier establishment of her recollection among other people. If it happened, and I believe it did happen from her recollection, shouldn't she have brought it forward? Imagine if she had had this experience, had this memory, and never told anybody about it, and this guy became Supreme Court Justice. Was that a responsible citizen? No, I think she did the right thing so far. This is going to be tough. 2 people in a room, but it's very hard to accept, I think, Kavanaugh's description of not having been at that party without having to say which party it was. It's a total denial. I mean, it's a good lawyer position. I've never done anything like that, been anywhere near that person, never been there. And she says, let me tell you what happened. These 2 guys rammed me into a room, closed the door behind us. I assume that was part of it. Corralled me was the term. Thrown me on the bed. When I tried to cry for help, covered my mouth. This does sound like assault. This isn't romancing or a little drunken romancing. It's just assault. And if she hadn't brought that to the public, I think that would have been a failure for citizenship.
The very nature of this sort of thing always ends up being he said or she said. That's why it's so hard. But it also is so incredibly difficult for a woman to come forward and say that I have been sexually assaulted for the very reasons that we see what Dr. Ford is going through right now, that I sort of do agree with Senator Murray that you owe these women, I think, the presumption of innocence, or at least to assume that they're telling the truth. They're not making this up, which means that it is the Senate's obligation to take this seriously and to do a lot better job than they did with the Anita Hill hearing. I mean, I went back and I think a lot of us this past week went back and looked at that Anita Hill hearing, and I was reminded again of why I was so angry, which is why I think that President Trump's tweet, when President Trump came out and said, why didn't they call the police? Why didn't she report this to her loving parents? Why didn't they report this? It's so appalling.
Yeah, I completely disagree with that. I'm sorry. In terms of the crucial point, women who come forward and make these accusations, they deserve to be heard. They deserve to be taken seriously. The idea, and Senator Murray says, we never doubt anybody when someone says, my car was stolen. That was a really clever line, and it misses the point entirely. We give the presumption of innocence to people if I say Chuck Todd stole my car. You have to prove that. And if we're going to say that women as a class are always going to believe no matter what, well, first of all, I want to see how Democrats deal with Keith Ellison. But second of all, that means that we are throwing out over 1,000 years of really important law that says we presume the innocence of the accused.
Hey, can I bring up a crass political point here? If Mitch McConnell thought Republicans were going to hold the Senate, would he be pushing for withdrawal of Kavanaugh and just give me somebody more confirmable?
I agree with you that both parties are acting politically. Democrats are clearly pushing in delay tactics. Sure. It's obvious. And Republicans clearly want to confirm him before the November election.
They fear November, both of them.
Absolutely. And it's patently obvious, and they're using this woman who has come forward and is going through an excruciating emotional trial for political ends. But I agree with Jonah, and I do find it somewhat insulting to women that they have to be presumed to be telling the truth and acting in good faith, and that their accusations, that they're presumed not to be able to back up their accusations, or shouldn't have to back up their accusations with
How do you
evidence.
begin to back up an accusation of something that took place 40 years ago? That's impossible. And the idea that you're going to go and ask people who had a party, I can't remember parties that I went to 40 years ago. None of us can. But she would. But it makes much more sense that she would remember, because she's the one who was sexually assaulted.
There's a big line between what Jonah said was you don't accept as absolute fact what somebody charges. But there's something in the Republican conversation last week which is different than that. There's sort of an I Love Lucy era thinking about women and the way they're portrayed on television. First of all, plow through it. No, it's a person. And this idea that they're ditzy or confusing, I like the way that Nikki Haley the other day, when somebody called her confused, she said, I don't get confused. I think this idea that women are confused or mistaken, as Orrin Hatch put it, is really a problem for the Republicans.
But for precisely that reason, I think that the idea that women can't back up their claims, or that their claims can't stand some sunlight, is insulting.
And this is why Thursday is going to be an impossible moment for this country and our politics. I just fully believe that, unfortunately, left or right. Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.